here, finally, is the 6mm UPC. And his markings he put somewhere underneath the barrel shroud handguard area. He said it was really difficult to find and read, and he was sorry about that. He didn't think about it having the long handguard on it when he built it, even though he had the whole entire upper while he was building it. I'm not complaining. I'm really happy with the work that he did and how fast he did it. So this is the 6mm Uncle Phil's cartridge, and I've got a ladder loaded up for it. He said it runs flawlessly with 4064, with 25 grains of 4064. That's pretty slow. This cartridge I designed and, I would say redneck engineered to run with faster powders than a 223 308, because the lighter bullets and larger diameter of the lighter bullets in 6mm is a lot more conducive with running some faster powders. And he made it function perfectly with rifle length gas and buffer weight and spring for that slower powder. I've got it loaded right now, my test loads, with heavy bullets, 87 grain VMAX, with some really fast powder. And if that cycles, then we'll move down to the light bullets. I've got 58 grain VMAX that I would absolutely love for it to shoot well. And if it'll do that with the fast powder as well, then we'll be in good shape. So all I need for this is charging handle. I forgot to buy a new charging handle, and I need to mount up a scope on it, and we're gonna go shoot this today. So before we get started, I chose the fastest powder that I have, other than, I think 2460 is a little faster. It's like 8208 XBR speed. But this stuff is single base and extruded. And so basically, if I can make it go with this, then we're going to be in really good shape. I don't have any load data to go off of here. So I went kind of cowboy. This 20 grain should be far, far below it. This is within 223 pressure. I think up to about 21.3 is the maximum for 223 pressure for, I think, 80 or 88 grain bullets. I can't remember how I came up with this data here. I'm gonna go until I start seeing pressure signs. Then I'm gonna stop, unload what's up here, deconstruct them, and try again with some smaller increments. I just need to gather data. This isn't like, hey, run with this data. This is, I need to establish maximums where I start seeing pressure signs, not like where I think is safe. I mean, where I start seeing my first pressure sign, that's where I'm going to mark pressures, and I'm going to write all this down in a book so that way I can start getting this cartridge marketed. We got a brand new Aero Precision bolt carrier and bolt in it, and so we're ready to roll. I love this. So my wife bought this dental hygiene utensil, and anything to do with cleanliness or like middle class people always comes in this like super nice like white painted cardboard. It costs like probably an extra $1 to package it in this white cardboard, but I love it because then I get to use it for targets. This is the target that I shot with the 6mm UPC yesterday. And this was just to break in the barrel. I was gonna try to get some load development out of it. I wasn't able to get my chronograph to work. It was just too dark, too cloudy, too yucky out. I couldn't get the chrono to pick anything up. I did get it to pick up a couple, and the couple that I got it to grab, it was severely underpressured. I had cycling issues with everything except the max charge, and these are not as good as they look. I shot this target at 50 yards, so this is, at best a minute and a half here. So, which I'm not unhappy with. This is experimental to me. So I just can't fit any more of this powder in there. And this was with the 87 grain VMAX. And I think I was able to get like 2,060, 2,080 feet per second out of this. So this powder just is not the money. And this bullet might not be the money. I need something flat base for that heavy 80 to 90 grain range, so that way I can really get the efficiency out of this cartridge. But anyway, I shot these. I measured the groups. You know, this is virgin firing for this this cartridge. Everything about it's brand new. So I'm not super disappointed with it. This is a 3-shot group. This was my very end because it was the last 3 shells that I had. I did some funky stuff here that I didn't take a note of. I was just in a hurry. I was running out of daylight. So I shot one group. I think it was this one at the top. And it was all of the charge weights fired into one group, just so that way I could check each individual shell for pressure signs before I got crazy into this. If I was going to run into pressure, I would just throw some out. But so, you know, these are 4-shot groups, where if this was a 5-shot group, might have had a flyer, might have made it a giant ugly group. It's just hard to tell with 4. But we're learning a little bit every time. So this goes in with the 6mm Uncle Phil's cartridge data. Okay, so now we've got, this is in the 6mm Uncle Phil's cartridge, and we've got this loaded with 25 to 26.5 grains of accurate 2460. The groups I shot yesterday for the barrel break-in and just some baseline stuff were severely underpowered, underpressured. They were 87 grain VMAX. These are 75 grain spear hollow point, and boy, those are nasty looking. That is going to be a destroyer if they're accurate. They're flat base, hollow point, and so I'm going to start with the first 5, see where it marks on paper, and gather some velocity data and hope we don't run into any pressure. So I forgot to get the velocity recordings off of the middle 3, 2533 and 2568. Not even close to maximum. Maximum in the book that I got into says we should be pretty close on 2,800 feet a second. So we'll carry on here. I got me a brass catcher now, so that way I can keep this 6mm brass segregated from 223 brass, because they look very similar, and then I'll be able to keep my rounds segregated to check pressure as well. Okay, so next is, so I needed a scope quick yesterday for this upper, and I was going to get a second focal plane version of that Viper PST. Really like that. Second focal plane, now that I've had experience with more first focal plane, is more of what I need for my uses anyways. But they had this SIG whiskey on sale. I don't know if it was a sale price, but it was significantly cheaper than comparable Vortex optics. And the headquarters is like an hour's drive away from me. And there was kind of a implied guarantee of, like, if you have any problems, you can drive an hour, take it to their headquarters and get it sorted out. It really appealed to me. It's a first focal plane, 5 to 20. Not the hugest fan of the reticle in there, but it's pretty darn good. I'm happy with it. So anyway, we'll shoot our next round, and that'll be 26.0 grains.
It's a lake. This is the lane I like best though, because it doesn't have one of those suppressor barrels on it. I don't have to shoot around it. It's easier to get my chronograph lined up. Luckily, I butchered a cow for the neighbors, and these boots soaked up about a pound of grease. And so I mean, they soak up water, but it at least takes them a minute. Anyway, that's it. That's the day. Get some groups measured. Some of these things are looking pretty good. So I've crunched the numbers as much as I'm going to crunch them. I'm not going to go for standard deviations on this stuff because it's just simple load development. I'm not going to move forward with most of this. But I was able to gather pretty good velocity readings on most stuff. It was kind of crummy out, and when the rain gets on my photo eyes, and if I don't go wipe them off and it gets dim and whatnot, I get varied results. So it's more of an idea for our velocity anyway. But what I did was, my first group was down here at A1. That was with the giant 308 and the 6mm UPC. I made that box of ammo you guys have seen, and so we started at 25.0 grains of accurate 2460. That did not shoot particularly well. It's a very ugly group, but it's still only an 1.5 inch group, the worst of it. But that's pretty ugly. I don't like the looks of that. We got a ways to go, and we had an average velocity of 2550. So that's not in the wheelhouse. The wheelhouse for this should be pretty close to 2,800 feet per second, maybe even more. And so we're just kind of figuring this out. I don't have data for this powder, so this is a purely wildcat from the beginning. But knowing that it's double base, I should be able to pump some juice out of this. So from 25.0, I came down and shot the 25.5 grain group. I started in the center because I didn't know where this thing exactly was going to mark, and so I wanted to make sure I had some room to make an adjustment. So I did make a scope adjustment to find center. The second group, 25.5 grains, that's into 0.91 inches and 2565 feet per second. That's not bad, but not what I'm looking for either. A 223 will do that with a 75 grain bullet. So then we shot 26.0 grains for an average of 2608, and we're starting to get a little closer. 1.15 inches, not ideal, but they're cheap, crummy bullets, and I can live with it. And my max charge I shot next, and that was into 1.20 inches for 2,671 feet per second. So the pressure and velocity are starting to climb really fast here. And so from here, I'm not going half grain increments. I'm going to start doing probably 0.3 or 0.2 of a grain increments until I find and establish a max for this. But this far right hand side is my max charge brass. And as you can see, those primers are still very, very round, and there are no pressure signs on the brass whatever. So we're definitely going to start climbing some more. I want to hit that 2,800, 2,900 feet per second range with those 75 grain bullets. I know they're capable of it. I know the gun, the cartridge, the powder, it all should be capable of it as long as we don't run into pressure. So I'm going to keep a close eye on it. And then my final group with that gun, I didn't do any cleaning on this rifle. I broke this in yesterday. So I didn't do any cleaning on this rifle. I cleaned it this morning before I left, and then came and shot a string of 25. This was my last group, came into 1.5 inches, same exact load as this was with a clean cold bore. It's looking better, and I did not take any velocity measurements, or I was saving this in case it was a good load to just have in the magazine, so I've got a loaded rifle with me. But I just decided I'd rather shoot it and have empty brass and get some stuff loaded up at this 26.5, because that's actually a wheelhouse load. Like I'm satisfied with that. It groups good, it's zeroed. I'm gonna load up like 20 of those and just have the gun loaded with them, so that way I know that the gun is loaded with something functional, shootable, deadly, and accurate. So that's today's range trip. I mean, we got a lot of data, we gathered a lot of footage. I've got a ton of stuff that's, you know, I forgot my book, so I've got everything written down on a darn sheet out of the phone book. So I got a ton of data to transcribe into my book, and we're moving on.